Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm going to adjust my camera here. All right, there you go. My name is Laura Radford. I'm the Executive Director of the West Seattle Junction Association, and I want to thank everyone for taking an hour and a half out of their evening to talk to us about the potential uses of the parking lots that are here in West Seattle Junction. With me this evening, I have Jeremy from Community Housing and also Jason. He'll be joining us from the architectural firm who has been kind enough to put together some drawings for us. First of all, I want to give you some of the rules that we're going to be following in the meeting today. I'm going to be your main presenter and also your moderator as well. We have a lot of people on the call, which is absolutely fantastic. What I'm going to ask you to do is make sure that you are muted. And if you would like to put a comment or a question in the chat, please do so. I will try to keep track of the hands raised, but because we have so many people on the call, I feel like the chat is going to be better. What we'll do is we'll go through the questions after each segment. And if we do not get to all the questions and the comments, we will make sure that we gather all those and certainly answer those and get back to you. This meeting is being recorded, and after the meeting is concluded, we will post the meeting on the Junction YouTube channel as well, which we will link to the Junction Instagram and also Facebook pages. We also have some media on the call tonight as well, so I'm sure you'll find links to today's meeting in both the West Seattle blog and also Westside Seattle. So the way that the meeting is going to go is I'm going to give some introductions and also some history behind the junction as well. And after each of the segments, we're going to stop and just put some moments in the meeting so we can field questions and also read out comments as well. After I'm finished with my little piece, I'm going to send it over to Jeremy. He is from Community Housing, and they have some really amazing developments all throughout Seattle. And he's going to give you a little bit of history about community roots housing. And then also he's going to give you some ideas of what we've been talking about, just for like some future ideas for the parking lots. From Jeremy, we're going to send it over to the architect, and he's going to screen share and show you some of the initial ideas that we have for the potential use of the 4 junction parking lots as well. Again, after each of these segments, we will be taking a moment to read comments and also read out your questions as well. And then at the end of the meeting today, we'll have a larger portion of time just to talk about what your ideas are and what you would like to see with the potential use of the parking lots. So anyway, we have, I think, everybody here. And so what I thought I would do is just give you an overview of the junction, and gives you the information and the background that you would need to ask questions and also drop in comments as well. And just a reminder, because there's so many people on the call and I'm also the moderator, please go ahead and ask your questions and also make your comments in the chat. That way I'll have a better idea of what we need to accomplish in the next 90 minutes. All right, so the West Seattle Junction, how did we come apart? Well, the history of the junction actually dates back to the early 50s. Actually, if you really want to go back to the early 1900s. But in the 50s, we had a group of folks that were really beginning to look at the West Seattle Junction as the hub for West Seattle. And they decided it would be a great idea to put in some free parking lots. And so in the mid in the mid 1953, 1954, 3 parking lots were put in the junction, and these were used for free parking for the community. A few years later, a fire station that was in the junction, it was moved, and that became the 4th free parking lot. And over years, from like the mid 1950s to the mid 1980s, the residents and the business owners, should I say, and the building owners, they would go around from business to business, and they would ask the businesses to chip in money to pay for taxes and maintenance for these parking lots. So as you can imagine, it was an awful lot of work, and a lot of begging for money and asking people to chip in to pay for taxes. And so it was decided in 1987 to create what was called a Business Improvement Area, or BIA. And the West Seattle Junction was born. We're the West Seattle Junction BIA, and we're one of 10 in the city of Seattle, the second oldest only to Pioneer Square. And we have BIAs in the University District and Columbia City, Pioneer Square. The newest one is in Ballard. So we have these 10 BIAs, and we fall under the city of Seattle, under the Office of Economic Development. And each of the BIAs, we were developed for a lot of different reasons. And as you can imagine, the BIA for West Seattle was developed to pay for the 4 free parking lots, which we have gladly done for many, many years, well over 30 years now. So as the BIA developed, obviously we began to do more things other than just pay for the parking lots. We developed the Summerfest, street fair, sidewalk sale, if you want to go way back. And then we started to do clean and safe, like cleaning the streets, the West Seattle Art Walk, the West Seattle movies, the beautiful flower baskets that you see in the summer. And so we really began to expand our services over the years to give West Seattle, a great and beautiful, vibrant downtown. So everything was great. Everything's been going great with the West Seattle Junction, and really have grown our services and created a beautiful downtown for the residents. So in about 2016 or so, the King County Treasurer's Office, they took a look at the parking lots and decided, these parking lots, they have been zoned for not just ground parking, but what was called highest and best use. That was where people could build much taller buildings and obviously ground floor free parking. And so the tax structure changed quite considerably, and it actually increased about 142% from 2013 to 2016. And it has increased steadily thereafter. So, obviously it was a challenge for all of us to figure out what we were going to do next with the parking lots. And one of the things that we've been working on for a couple of years now is the program where we're moving the free parking, and keep in mind, it was never free. The merchants of the West Seattle Junction paid for the parking lots out of money that was sent to the city of Seattle. But we did take a look at a different kind of a model where we thought about, would it make sense for us to move to more of a paid parking model where we ask the community to pay a modest couple of dollars an hour to help us pay for these taxes. So it took us a couple of years to figure that out. And in early this year, we decided to move to this paid parking model. And it certainly worked out great. And the West Seattle Junction, we get about 20% of the revenue that comes in from the paid parking. The remainder of it goes to the parking manager, Diamond Parking, and also our landlords, West Seattle Trustee Properties. Well, over the years, we've had these conversations about the viability of the parking lots. First, the merchant-funded parking lots, and also the now community-shared parking lots. And because the parking lots are in the middle of a urban village, we really started to take a look at what was good in 1954, in the mid 1950s through 1987 and early into the 90s. And now in our modern day, did it really make sense for these parking lots, whether free or paid, to sit here undeveloped? And so we've had these discussions, for over the many years on and off. And we decided, well, what would it look like if there was the ability to build on these parking lots? And not only the development of the lots would serve the community now, but it would also serve the community for many generations. And so we started a conversation with Community Roots Housing, and they are funded through the Office of Housing in a lot of their projects. And the Office of Housing and also the Mayor's Office, they were extremely intrigued because one thing, as we all know, there's a great shortage is affordable housing in Seattle. And I think it'll become, less and less affordable as time goes on. And so the Office of Housing was extremely intrigued about the ability to put affordable housing in the urban village of the West Seattle Junction. And so they funded an appraisal. And from that appraisal, they were able to come up with a number, and they presented the number to our landlord's trustee properties. And then what we decided to do was engage with an architect and see exactly what could be accomplished with these parcels and how it really benefited the residents of West Seattle and what we could potentially accomplish together. And so this meeting today is one of those things that we are talking about. So anyway, I want to take a moment here and just pause and read the comments. If anybody has any comments, or if you have any questions about the material that I've talked about and presented so far. And it looks like no questions, any hands raised. All right, well, I'm going to say that I've done a pretty good job then, hopefully. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send this over to Jeremy, and he's from Community Roots Housing, and he's going to talk a little bit more about what they do in the city of Seattle and the potential of what they could bring to the West Seattle Junction. Oh, we do have a couple of questions, and this is from Pete Spalding. Hi, Pete. And can you define low-income housing in this sense? Absolutely. That is going to be a question for Jeremy. So Jeremy, we will make sure that we answer that question for Pete. And who paid for the architectural drawings? That was also Community Roots Housing as well. So appreciate them doing that. And how many parking spaces currently exist in the lots combined? We have 228 parking spaces in all 4 lots. There's 9 parking spaces that are adjacent to the Metro bus stops. And that land is actually owned by the city of Seattle. It's the parking spaces behind Pharmaca on Southwest Alaska. And so you'll see that there were signs put up for 2-hour parking on those 9 parking spaces, because that land is actually owned by the city of Seattle. And then in the junction itself, this is the parking lots, things under QFC, Jefferson Square, the free parking. Within the district itself, we have 710 combined parking spaces, which includes the parking in these 4 parking lots. How many spaces will we lose? I'm going to have Jeremy talk about that a little bit more as well. Will there be any public parking to be included? That's a Jeremy question too. And it's also a question for the architect. So Jeremy, without further ado, I'm going to send this meeting over to you.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks everyone for spending what seems like it's going to be a rainy evening together, and maybe on Zoom. That maybe this is a benefit of a Zoom call. We're all not out darting rain to get together with one another. We'll get to those questions, I promise. But I think I'd like to just start with the broader picture of who we are. Why we're interested in working with the junction on this this really cool project, and then we can answer those questions, and then I'll pass it over to the architect. So Community Roots Housing is an organization that's been around about 40 years. We have a very unique governance structure. We're what's called a public development authority, chartered through the city of Seattle. So we're very similar to a nonprofit or to the junction itself, in that we have a very close tie to the city. We're chartered through the city of Seattle, and our primary mission is to create and own and manage affordable housing. I think there's a broader definition. What we call is we like to build vibrant and engaged communities, and the way we think about that is we like to partner with organizations throughout the city, and try to create not just affordable housing, but visions of where we think these communities want to go. And we're going to give you some examples of some of the projects that we're working on before we talk specifically about the site, if that's okay, just to give you an idea of the type of work we're doing. So I will answer the affordability question because that's an easy one. The way we would define affordability on this site, there's very different definitions of what is affordable housing. So it's a good question. The primary way we build affordable housing is we use a 60%, use a low-income housing tax credit, which limits the incomes up to 60% of the area median income, which I know is a very dry way to think about it. What that really means is it relates to what the income is in the Seattle area, but it's roughly, for like a family of four, somebody making $60,000 a year. For a family of two, it's roughly $40,000. It varies by family size. There's a chart on the city's website that we could put in the chat. After I'm finished speaking, I'll find it and put it in the chat so people could look at it to get an idea of the housing. But what we consider that is workforce housing, people that are not able to afford to live in the neighborhoods in our city anymore. And that's the sort of place where we work. With me, let me just say we have quite a few folks. Our CEO, Chris, is joining in. I think he's not able to say a few words, but if he is at some point, hopefully he'll be able to unmute and say a few words. We also have Akila, who works, she's a team member of mine. She's going to give some of the presentation too, on what we're going to show. And I believe we have a few other folks from our organization too listening in. So we really appreciate being here. Jason, do you want to maybe show the slides, and then Akila could start talking about the projects we're working on currently as examples? Not that this is what we would potentially do in West Seattle, but just some examples of what we're working on.
Laura, it looks like something's holding me back from sharing.
Yes, I'm going to make you the host, Jason, in just a second.
Okay.
So we did have a question. I do like to hold some space after we do each of the presentations. So from Victoria, she wanted to know, Jeremy, how many 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units?
Oh, okay, great. And then, so we do have some slides. We'll come back to those, but I'm happy to answer these questions. And if you like, talk a little about parking even at this point, because we know how important that is. We don't know how many bedrooms. So where we're at now is this is like early days, as we like to say. So we like to engage with the community, work with Laura, like we consider this a real partnership between us and the junction, and figure out the right mix of units on the site. There's a lot of parking lot here. We have some ideas, but we want to hear what the neighborhood wants to see. But what I will say, because I want to be upfront, is that the City of Seattle housing levy, which is our primary piece of money we use, does favor smaller units. And that was, all of us as voters voted on that. Geez, it must have been 6 years ago or something. And the city at that time was like trying to deploy the money. So it is typically smaller units, but I think the more, ever since then, we're evolving more into trying to do more larger bedroom units. So we do try to favor as many larger bedroom units as we can without any input from the community. But, you know, I think that would be something important to talk about as we're designing the building. There's no decisions made on unit count. And I'll just handle the parking one, because that one will be out there for a long time, I think, if I don't be upfront about it. So we get funded through the city to build housing, and that money cannot be used to create public parking. But we are very concerned around the loss of these parking lots and want to work with Laura, with the junction, with everybody in this call to figure out how to replace the parking and how many parking spaces we would replace. I think it's very much economics. It's very much, where do we find the money to replace public parking? And when I say public parking, I'm not talking about like we're going to build a parking lot that's primarily for the residents. It's true public parking. It's parking that's available for people to park to go to the businesses. And so, what I'm saying is, I guess we don't have an answer to that, but we really want to solve that with the community, because we understand that's an important part of this project.
All right, thank you for that, Jeremy. And I also want to note that our council member is on the call as well. So thank you, Councilmember Herbold, for joining us, and the wave. And also you'll see that she is dropping links and stats into the chat. So thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. So I'm going to send this over to Jason. Before I do though, and I will make this PDF available on the Junction website, I've actually pulled an intercept study from SDOT that was conducted in 2018. So it's relatively fresh. And one of the things that they pointed out, and they surveyed 103 people. And the interesting survey was people who drove alone to the junction, it was only 29%. And people who walked was 27. So only 29% of the people who are actually visiting the junction are actually driving in a single operator vehicle. And I think that's a really important thing to point out as we talk about parking, because I know it's a hot topic. And also, I do want to make the point that when we did switch from the paid, the free lots to the the community paid lots as well, you would have noticed that the usage of the lots decreased dramatically. And one of the main questions that I got as the director was, well, has sales gone down in the junction because people just aren't coming to the junction? And obviously that was something that we had discussed before we moved to the paid parking model. And I mean, it's harder to parse it out because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but that was one of the top questions that I had for the merchants over and over again. And I continue to ask that question month after month. And the answer is no. So sales didn't decrease for our retail people like Husky Deli or like Elliott Bay or the Beer Junction. I don't know, maybe because beer and ice cream just sells no matter what. But what we found was the parking lots were far emptier than they were before. And if you remember, before we moved to paid parking, even like, well, this is pre-pandemic, but you would go on a Friday, a Saturday night, even a Thursday, and you would drive around for forever trying to find a parking space. And I know people would just give in and just go home because they just couldn't find parking. But what we found is the people who were using our parking lots when they were merchant funded or free to the community were the people that were living in the apartment buildings, or they were parking their car in the parking lots and hopping on the metro. And so when we talk about people shopping or dining in the junction, keep in mind that maybe 700 parking spaces within the district maybe isn't quite needed any longer. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we're going through these discussions. I'm just going to take a moment and read the comments. That is true. There has been a change in the bus service. And thank you, Scott, for that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send the meeting over to Jason. Jason, I'm going to make you the host, and that should give you the ability to share your screen. I believe, Jason, you're going to have to make me the host after you're finished.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you. I think Jeremy wanted to show some of Community Roots and maybe talk through these first few slides.
There's a few slides just to go through.
Yeah.
Like Akila, if you wouldn't mind. Akila's going to talk about a couple of them, and then I'll finish with the third one.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for giving us this opportunity to share some of our buildings that we have developed in the recent years. So the first building that you're looking at is our Liberty Bank building that is located in the Central District of Seattle. This building has 15 units. And we came together, we pride ourselves on partner relationships. So we came together with Africa Town, Bird Bar, and the Black Community Impact Alliance to redevelop this site, which was the first Black-owned bank in the Pacific Northwest. And we wanted to redevelop this site into affordable homes. So we had the opportunity to do that with these community groups, which we are really proud of. And here at the Liberty Bank, we have 3 commercial spaces that have 3 Black-owned commercial spaces with tenants up in our building. Now we have a barbershop there. There's going to be a coffee shop, and there is a restaurant there. And through our development process, we really brought the community together. So we involved local artists, and we partnered with minority subcontractors. And in this building, we also have a bike room, a community room. And Jason, can you switch to Station House? So this is our Station House building, which has 110 units. And this building is located on Sound Transit land. This is our TOD, transit-oriented development property that's located in the heart of Capitol Hill in the Seattle area. We opened Station House in March of 2020. So the Station House preserves as an economic diversity in the community of Capitol Hill. We have a rooftop, and we also have a community room that is open to the public. And we are proud, we are excited that we have a LEED certification. We're part of the LEED certification program. So yeah, and this building has a bike room as well. So Jason, can you go to the next slide?
This one's a little closer to West Seattle. This is down in White Center. It's a partnership with the White Center CDA and Southwest Youth Family Services, which I think are in West Seattle, but also operate in White Center. We're redeveloping a piece of property that's owned by King County in the neighborhood into a community service facility for the neighborhood, as well as about 80 apartments. And you guys could see the renderings here. And it's just an example of where we're working with the local group there to tried to implement the vision for the neighborhood. I mean, it's probably a little bit less density than we would be talking about in the junction, but could give you an idea of sort of what we're working on.
No.
From here, Laura, I don't know if we should answer some more of the chat questions or move on to the ideas for the site itself.
All right, let's take a look. Thank you. Bruce, yes, only 29% of visitors do drive to the junction. And again, I will be happy to, I will share the PDF of the intercept study to our local media, and I will also post that on the junction website as well, so everybody can read the entire deck. Alex is lending his voice, or lending their voice, should I say, to support removing of the parking and building more affordable housing. Oh, and then Rich says, I think we'd be better off with 1 to 2 floors on each parcel. And thank you, Laura. Yes, absolutely. I will send the intercept study, and Phil Tavel agrees with Rich. Parking at each location is a good idea. All right, should we go back to the presentation?
You have sound turned on?
Yeah.
Oops, went too far. Oops. I gotta learn the buttons here real quick. Thank you. My name is Jason Roberts, and I am with Ankrom Moisan Architects. We are really excited to be involved in this early work here in the junction. We actually have several of my coworkers live in the neighborhood or near the neighborhood, and a couple of them have been involved a little bit in this first study. This is to us a feasibility study, so I think someone mentioned we're thinking about what could happen here. You know, nothing I'm showing here is very fixed at all. It's a little bit more of an opportunity study. And so I'm gonna take you through this slowly. This is the corner of 44th and Alaska. One of the sites we'll be looking at is right across where the Key Bank sign is there. So this is the table of contents to our presentation, but just quickly to go through, and actually there's a historic shot of the district back in the day. Sorry, I don't know the date, but it was a while ago. I'm going to talk about the zoning and some of the site constraints and some of the things we understand about the site. It'd be very interesting to know other thoughts about these sites that people have. We'll look at the aerial photo and then go through some initial design concepts, things that we think would drive what got built there on those sites. And then we'll look at a very schematic overall site plan that shows some building shapes and then a little more detail on those. And then we took a pass at one conceptual sketch to show you very early what one of the parcels might look like. This on your left there is a page from the zoning code showing the West Seattle Junction urban village. The black line is the urban village, and those red squares are the sites we're looking at. They all fall in that commercial core zoning. They're primarily along 42nd and 44th Street, 3 of them on 44th and 1 on 42nd. And then if you, and north is up on this. And if you take a look, this is our diagrammatic analysis of what, just a real initial zoning look at what what the possibility is in terms of what the zoning code allows and some of the constraints on the site. We call this one along 42nd, site 1, and then we jump over to 44th here, a little bit south of Oregon Street, that's site 2. Site 3 is directly at Alaska and 44th, and then site 4 is a little bit south of there along 44th. First of all, the height limit, this is a number. We're not proposing these exact heights, but that is what you could build. It's a maximum height you could build at these sites. The kind of more maroon color here on these 2 sites, site 1, show where the zoning, it's not specifically retail, but it does want you to create retail on these sites at the ground floor.
There you are.
The next thing I want to say is all these sites live on alleys. They are connected to the alley on one side. The power lines run back there. So in this early stage, we draw these kind of blue lines here to show that we will need to set the buildings back because of those power lines, whatever we propose. We also have some setbacks above 65 feet on some of these buildings.
Anybody hear you? You push, click.
Looks like someone isn't muted somewhere.
Chat, share screen, record reactions.
Gail, can you mute?
63.
Gail, could you mute your mic? Thank you. And then the green are some major trees we see on these sites. And last of all, I did want to note the parking there is no minimum parking on these sites. So new development is not required to build parking per the zoning code. Some of the things we gathered walking around the site, we really loved, the juxtapose of smaller and larger buildings in the neighborhood. We think it makes for a visually interesting place, and building new buildings that both respond to that and create some of that dynamic big and small things we're interested in. The alleys to us are really important too. They're almost like mini streets. They're different, but you can sense a lot of people move through the alleys and go into back of some of the buildings. There's sort of reverse entries on the retail. And then 42nd Avenue, where the site 1 is where the larger buildings exist now, most of them new. And it is fairly steep on that, fairly steep site there on that site. Along 44th, where the other sites are, it's a little bit lower scale, and those sites are fairly flat. So now we're up in the sky looking down, California Street running down the middle here, and Alaska crossing here, and the pink areas are the 4 sites. And like I said, on 44th, you can see it's been built up more recently with larger buildings, and there's sort of a transition down to sites 2, 3, and 4 along that side. These are our concepts that we've, when we start, concepts mutate, but we start with some basic ideas. For us, the first thing we really think it's important these fit in this neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. A lot of, it's amazing. There's so many people walking around, and we see the streets being really important, the sidewalks and the engagement, people being involved in walking and running into each other and going to shops. We really think it's important to engage that ground level. We love the diversity of the architecture, the historic buildings, and how the new buildings are starting to work with those. And you can see even the murals. There's a lot of great murals around. So for us, it'll be really important that if we work on these in the future, that we're allowed to fit in and make the building feel comfortable, and like it always should have been there, kind of. We're also, and this will be more apparent when I show you the building sort of forms right now, but we're really interested in creating some outdoor spaces adjacent to the sidewalk, and making them public if we can. The way the buildings tend to work on the alley, they want to kind of step back and have outdoor space on the front side. The Liberty Bank that Community Roots did has a great little public court right in front, that we'd like to emulate in some of these. You can see it right here. You can walk through there, and some of the rainwater gets treated in that space. It's really quite lovely. So we imagine people being able to walk around these buildings and have a little place to take a break, meet a friend. The buildings themselves will also have uses that engage these spaces. And then last of all, one of our ideas is to make sure we maintain the ability to get through these blocks with kind of through block connections. So ability to walk, and you can see when we show you the forms, walk underneath the building and get to the alley, to get into some of those spaces along the alley. And just the blocks are fairly long, so we think it's nice to be able to make it more porous. We also imagine those would be great spaces to introduce artwork and places to sit. This is one of the existing ones in the neighborhood. And then this particular one is at Capitol Hill at adjacent to the Station Place project, where you see the lobby and the ability to walk through the building into the courtyard. And then last of all, the community in these buildings, we think developing how buildings themselves create communities that fit in the bigger West Seattle community. There's an idea about an incubator space in Site 2, where we imagine people building mostly food-related businesses as an open kitchen, and probably imagine big opening doors that engage the courtyard on that building. And then the residents that will live on these parcels also sort of, they have their own community, they have their own rooms, they will likely create rooftop terraces to maximize the ground floor for public use. They'll have private roof terrace that if you live there, you can go up and have dinner with your friends. And encourage things like movies happening in the courtyards themselves. Here's the overall site plan showing all 4 sites with some of the proposed program we're thinking about. I'll just kind of go through the list here, but Site 1 is the largest site here. And for that reason, we're trying to create affordable family housing there, meaning we'd have a bigger mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units in that parcel. We also imagine some retail space. The residents would have a common area, and we have a ground level outdoor space with the ability to walk through the block on there, a roof deck, and then we're looking at this one has a good the slope of the site and the way the alley works right now. It's very efficient to create some underground parking on that particular site. On Site 2, this is where the incubator fills the most of the ground level. We're also proposing a community meeting space that the neighborhood could use there. And above there, we'd have residential common areas, a roof deck, and those would be affordable apartments. So they'd have a wide range of sizes, some families, some smaller units. And then as we move to Site 3, we'll have a little bit of retail space fronting the bus, the area where the buses come there. But this will be mainly for seniors, so there'll be affordable senior apartments, and they too will have common area, likely a roof deck, and some public outdoor space. The last parcel here, number 4, actually I'm at Site 2, and we'll go into parking a little bit. Site 2, we think there is a possibility for underground parking there. It isn't as large a site, so it's a little bit less efficient to create parking, but it is possible. Sites 3 and 4, that's more challenging because of the size of the site. When you go down, you need to create ramps, and it's pretty challenging. You sometimes end up getting not that many spaces for all the work to get below grade. But Site 4 and Site 4 is another affordable apartments. This one will be like Site 2, a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, maybe a few 3 bedrooms. This is an axo view, so a 3-dimensional view. You can see 44th here, Alaska, 42nd in California. These are very diagrammatic. They don't really look like buildings. They show you more the potential form of the building. This particular view kind of focuses on 44th here, where you see this building is set back to preserve the existing trees, and there is a courtyard created there and a way to walk through this parcel on this edge and connect into the alley. The senior on Site 3 also has a small south-facing courtyard there, a little bit of retail here. And then Site 2 has a courtyard along the sidewalk there with the incubator siding on one side of that, and then you can also walk through that. These right here are 65-foot high at their roofs. The roof deck themselves are a little bit above that. And the next view will go on that. One of the things that drives these buildings as we move into them is they will be the type of construction, we need to be smart and efficient about what we can afford to do. So these typically are a little bit of concrete at the ground floor, and then they're built out of wood. So they kind of limit some of the size of these buildings and obviously make them affordable for affordable housing. And then we flip over and you can see 42nd here in Alaska. This is Site 1. This is a long site, so you can see we've tried to create a form that opens up here with a courtyard, and you can walk through that space, but it also steps down as you go down the hill, and there's another courtyard that faces the other direction, which would be more private and have a playground for the children that would live there, a secure playground, and then retail along the edge of that one. So this jumps into some of the detail here, and I just explained that a little bit, but maybe focus on the ground level. There's retail along 42nd here. You can there'll be a courtyard here that you can walk through, go down a stair to the alley. Very similar if you've been to the parking lot, it has a stair there. And that grade difference allows us to create parking below this building. So it'd be underground parking. And right now that shows 1 level. We think there's potential to go 2 levels here. There's still some analysis to do on that. And then the majority of the building above would be apartments with some community space and roof decks. This is Parcel 2 up at Oregon and 44th. There's a couple little really nice little brick apartments here. And adjacent to that, we put the incubator space and the kitchen that serves that, filling up the ground space and then activating this outdoor space here. It could be a courtyard, it could be plaza-like. Imagine we want people to come out and have a sandwich there, kind of space. And then you can walk through the block into the alley there, and there's a public community space as you go across the courtyard, and then the lobby here, and that would serve the residents, which would be in the building above with a roof deck. You can see the small parking lot is something we're looking at as a potential where you'd come off the alley and be able to go down and park 1 level below this building. And then the last 2 sites go in a little bit of detail. This is the senior parcel with the retail along the Alaska here, and the outdoor space facing south off of this is a common space for the residents and the lobby. And above they would have apartments above there. This building we imagine will need to address the really uniqueness of the intersection, the street coming in. I think it's Glen Way, and how we do that. We think it would want to be a special moment architecturally. And then site 4, it sets back, like I mentioned, the existing trees here and creates a courtyard around the common space and the lobby. We actually have some people that would live in units on the ground floor here, set back a little bit, and then apartments above there and a roof deck on that one also. This is an early, very conceptual rendering of site 2. This is 44th here, and the Oregon Apartments right there at the corner. And you can see some of the we tried to show some of the ideas we want to do. It's very early on thinking, but creating this courtyard here, and that people, as you walk along the sidewalk, it would just naturally get wider there as you come along. And then you can go through the building into this portion here and enter the alley, and perhaps go into one of the shops there. This space along here would be the incubator space that extends all around the courtyard. So we imagine we don't open maybe some glass garage doors and spill out into here. I think the incubator, there's still some thinking of how that works and how that would function. And then over here would be the room for the community to meet and share that community room. You can see above is apartments on all these levels with a community roof deck at that level. There's probably a community room up here because the ground floors are filled with public uses. The other thing I wanted to note is you can kind of see how this is initial massing, but we're really trying to respect some of the scale of the neighborhood and complement with this building being a smaller feel, much similar to the Oregon apartment. And then as you move up, the newer buildings are a little bit taller. So this building, even though it has a lot of apartments, steps up and feels very comfortable, kind of gracefully extending the scale. And then the piece back here is pushed back from the street. So it sort of steps back and gives that idea that we wanted to really work with the scales of the buildings. That is all I have here. I imagine we could go back, but I'm going to jump to my last slide, which is community input. And I think, Laura, you probably want to take over again, right?
Well, why don't we keep your screen up just so if we need to go back and forth on some of the presentation, we can.
Sure.
But let's get caught up on the comments. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to get us all caught up on the comments. And then what we would love is for you in the comments to just start giving ideas and asking questions. And as the questions come in, we will I'll send the questions to different people so we can get as many answered as possible. But this is a community benefit and also a community process as well. And what I would like Jeremy to do, if you don't mind, Jeremy, is there's a difference, isn't there, between a normal development process where you're putting a large building in in an area like the junction versus what Community Roots goes through when you are taking a look at building a community space. Could you maybe talk everybody through that, the differences between the two?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that, Laura. These are concepts, and we hired Ankrom Moisan knowing that they work in partnership with us on getting ground up, what we call ground up design. And so, we normally actually wouldn't have gone to this step even of starting to design buildings or show massings, as we call it, show ideas of where maybe we could put some of the public parking. We normally wouldn't start with any of that. And we would start with a community meeting where we would be in a room and start talking about what the community needs. And that's our intention here. This process is a little unique in the way that Laura and I guess, all of us are having to engage with the owner of the property, and that we thought that in this case, it was important to give some ideas of what could happen on these sites, but this isn't, these aren't like locked in stone in any way whatsoever. So I think, I hope people are seeing what we presented more of as ideas that are, our ideas, but not your ideas. So we want to just make sure everybody understands that we want to hear ideas from the neighborhood, want to incorporate that as much as possible. But this is sort of what we could do with the property and how we sort of would think about it in a vacuum, which is not how we like to build buildings. I know a lot of developers come to town and they kind of say like, okay, I got to build this many units of housing and I'm going to make it this design. And we do have those constraints, and we talk about that in our process. We're like, we got to have this many units. We talk about the funding we use to get it, but we do like to build buildings that represent a collective effort from the community. So hopefully that is a little explanatory. So I hope people, if they have a negative image of what we presented, it'd be great to hear it, but also know that these things are changeable. And I know Jason, as an architect, like he's open to that, and that's how they normally work as well. So just thank you, Laura, for letting me put that context in.
Of course. And Jason, I think you're already familiar with the junction as well. You've designed one of the soon to be built famous buildings, isn't that correct?
Yeah, one of my coworkers, she's leading up the design there to expand Huskies Deli. So we're excited about that one.
Well, thank you. All right, so let's take a look at the comments here, and again, this meeting is being recorded, so you can read the comments at your leisure. Okay, so let's see. Oh, so Bruce doesn't believe only 29% of the visitors, they drive to the junction. Well, 90% drive to True Value. I think, Bruce, because you sell a lot of heavy stuff, I'm not probably going to walk some paint cans home and some topsoil. But I would say if you think about people going to Flirt or Camellia's or going out for a bite to eat at Jack's, maybe more people do actually walk to the junction than maybe you think. So anyway, I will be sharing that intercept survey with everybody as well. So everybody's more than welcome to take a look at the numbers. Rich, he says, for public parking, I think we'd be better off with 1 to 2 floors on each parcel than one major multi-level garage. He makes a good point about avoiding congestion. Again, we do have a lot of old-fashioned roads around the junction other than the wider California Avenue. So it would certainly behoove us to take a look at congestion if there was a possibility of building one large concrete parking structure. And I don't know if that's really the best use of the parking lots as well, is just to build an ugly parking structure on it. So I don't know, I think we can do something better than that, but that's just my opinion. Phil agrees with Rich, yeah, about the congestion. And then let's take a look here. Have you considered DS? Have you considered light rail? Yes, absolutely. As you know, the draft EIS is going to be released pretty darn quickly from Sound Transit. That's going to be another long community process as well. And that's where you're going to be deciding and giving input on where those critical stations are going to go, especially the one in the Alaska Junction. Less parking is best. Let's take a look here. Oh, thank you, Lisa, for chiming in, as also Jeremy as well. Let's see here. Rich, again, do you want to go up to the full 8 to 9 stories on these projects? Jason, Jeremy, you want to go ahead and field that question?
I could field that one from a financial perspective. It certainly would not be more than 8. There's an interesting thing that happens in the cost of construction and building code above 8. You know, beyond that, I think that's only one site that would be 8 stories, right, Jason? Even if we did want to go up 8, I believe the others are limited to
Correct.
below that.
Yeah, the one is it's stepping down the hill and it's 8 and 7, but it's kind of 2 7s almost because of the grade.
Another question from Susan. In fact, we've had a number of questions about the incubator. So an incubator it's a unique and exciting prospect for, imagine incubating small businesses. If you've owned a small business or owning a small business currently or thinking about it, it's a prospect that is exciting and daunting in equal measures. And so the incubator space, imagine a beautiful building that has multiple businesses inside of it, restaurants, retail, and these incubators, these restaurants and retails, they have the ability to put their space in a common building where the lease is much lower than it would be just on the commercial market. Not only that, but an incubator also has the ability for services like legal services and marketing services and just like sometimes just mental health services, right? Wrapped around those small business owners. So you're providing them a much better chance of being successful. I think businesses, especially restaurants, about 93% of them, they all fail in the first year. So imagine having these beautiful spaces that are below market value, that has things like a common kitchen where these small business owners can do their startup work, get their feet on the ground, get some services behind them, get some people who are going to support them and give them a much greater chance to succeed. And once they have figured out what it's going to take to be a small business owner, once they've become successful, then we take that small business, whether it be retail or restaurant, and they go out into the world and find themselves a brick and mortar. And then we do that all over again with that vacant space. And it's a great way to curate small businesses, and it gives them the ability to be more successful. One of the reasons that we are advocating for an open community space is not only we need a community center in the junction as well, but we also need a place for these small businesses to meet, like common meeting rooms and training sessions, and give people ways to really dip their toe into small business ownership. You know, as we know, it's the backbone of America. So why not take that and provide people a very special space that they can help grow their small business and move them along into their own brick and mortar. So that's kind of the concept of the business incubator. As you can probably tell, I'm not excited about it at all. So, okay, so the rate of car ownership is much lower for 60% AMI households. Thank you, Lisa. That is a good point. So as we take a look at family affordable housing or affordable housing, there's going to be less people who would actually own a car. And I believe if we do move forward with affordable senior housing, which would be so incredible to build adjacent or close to our senior center, folks like that would also need less vehicles as well. Absolutely. Okay, so Scott, yeah, community benefits and housing, absolutely. ST3, I'm going to scroll down here.
Laura,
Yes.
I wanted to point out that at the station house, we do have a roof deck garden for residents, because I've seen that in the comments as well. And we have advocated for bike lanes too in Capitol Hill, in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. So
that's good to know. Patricia, I know it's early days, but are you doing sustainability studies yet to look at solar orientation, which could greatly affect mass something and systems? Would that be something that you could entertain, Jeremy?
Sure, absolutely. We have an aspirational goal, probably more than it's become challenging, but to have the greenest portfolio in the Pacific Northwest. It's a lofty goal, and so absolutely that would be something we'd look at. It's difficult in an urban setting to design to solar orientation, but we do try to do green. We focus a lot on energy, water usage reduction, as well as healthy materials we put in the buildings for the residents are kind of our focuses. We have to follow something called the Evergreen State Design Standards, which is a greater level of affordability, of sustainability and energy savings than a typical market rate development. So we absolutely are aligned, I think, with that goal and trying to do that. And I think, yes, we absolutely would look at orientation when we can, and obviously do a PV solar, for those who know what that is, on the building, all our buildings that we do for energy production.
Jeremy, this question is for you. Would these units be developed as MFTE units, multifamily tax exemption?
No, when we do affordable housing units, it's paid for with the housing levy, Office of Housing Levy. So they're not MFTE units. The difference is the rents are lower in our units than an MFTE unit, and also go for at least 70 years. Although given our nonprofit, I mean, we haven't been around 70 years yet, but our intention is to have these units stay affordable in perpetuity. The MFTE program expires after 12 years. So the market developers, the other developers you see use MFTE, those units are only affordable for 12 years. And what they get for that is a tax a reduction on their property tax. So whereas ours will be affordable for hopefully forever, but at least 70 years.
And then Fred asks, what's the timetable of this construction if it happens? I know we have talked about, obviously we wouldn't develop all the lots at once because that would just be crazy. But I think the first lot up for development would be the lot behind Husky Deli, Jeremy, is that correct?
Don't know which would be first. Could be that one. I don't know which one it would be. The first one, the first lot would probably not be till 2024, where the difference, that is the negative difference with us, is it takes a while to put these together. We know it takes a while to get community input. Permitting takes a while, getting financing takes a while. So it's probably 2024, 2023 if we're really, if we get faster. So it's a slow process. So these would maintain as parking lots for use for the community up until we're ready to redevelop them. And at that point, during construction, there wouldn't be parking, but some of them, whatever, we got to figure all that out, which ones would have public parking back. But it would be a while, 3 years, which I think would be ahead of ST3 coming in, unless they accelerate that. But certainly we would think about that too, right, in our planning.
All right, so we've got through quite a few of the comments here. So we have, let's see here. We have about 20 minutes left. This is the, DS to everyone, Sound Transit 3, sorry about that. Yep, Sound Transit, DS. It's about 20 minutes left. What Jason and Jeremy have laid out this evening is just an initial plan, ideas. Obviously this is going to be an important change to the junction, if the landlords decide to move forward and accept the offer that was presented to them. But the important thing is right now is to really think about and talk about what you would like to see on these 4 parking parcels. We have a little bit of green space incorporated into the parcels. As we all know, green space is at a premium. Currently in the Junction, we have Junction Plaza Park, and then we have another park adjacent to Sound and Fog by Whole Foods that will eventually be built. But green space is still at a premium. Is green space something that you would like to see? More boutiques, and more open spaces to have a bite to eat and eat your lunch during the middle of the day. One of the things that we're looking at is bringing back the West Seattle outdoor movies. And if Patrick Sand from the West Seattle blog is on this call, he'll be excited because for years, I ran the outdoor movies for about 13 years. And every year he wanted to do a Planet of the Apes trilogy, which I always refused. So maybe he'll get his wish for Planet of the Apes if we can start to show outdoor movies again in the Junction. But what kind of things would you like to see? I mean, if you could develop these lots, what is going to be the most important thing for you? Not only now, but also in the future. You know, think about it almost as your legacy. What would you like to see? Victoria, she likes the idea of affordable and green spaces, and it's critical with livability, climate change, and adding more trees. So certainly adding more trees into the plan. I mean, I'm not an architect, but Jason, I think we could do that, right? We could add some more trees, for goodness sakes. I hear daycare has outdoor requirements, and it seems like we could use more daycare. I think that's a good point too. I think one of the things that we're missing is larger employers in the Junction. So what we're really trying to do is take a look at ways to utilize the spaces where we can have larger employers that live, work, shop, and eat in the Junction and support the Junction businesses. Okay, people are loving the retail spaces in Incubator. Car. So 2 questions. With increasing amount of foot traffic and additional car traffic, will there be a plan for additional crosswalks to be added throughout the Junction and other streets? I'm probably going to send this one over to you, Jason. Like as you have designed and built buildings, do you end up working with SDOT and increasing the number of crosswalks, or do you change the streetscape?
You know, we usually look at the streetscape that's adjacent to the building, and we meet with SDOT. And at that point, I think we could introduce ideas that made sense to us about things, but typically we're just working with where we are. And I mean, I guess the site 3 is on a corner at that intersection, so there might be some discussion, and so we can have some influence, but we don't actually do that work, but we would do the sidewalks around our buildings if they need to be rebuilt, and that could affect some of that.
And then a second question, has there been an impact analysis on adding 4 separate affordable housing complexes on the surrounding property values? Jeremy, can you speak to that? Do you have any data that supports the property values increasing or decreasing in relation to affordable housing?
Sure, I definitely do, and there's a I can dig it up. I mean, most of the information I have is a bit old at this point, but meaning a couple of years. And there's been a lot of studies. You could Google more. I can find them and send them out after this. That have the affordable housing, especially what we're calling workforce housing, has had no impact on the values of around the surrounding communities. There's been quite a few studies that have resulted in that. So I could say like with some level of confidence that given what I've seen, that's not the case at all. I mean, if you're looking at a neighborhood, you really, most affordable housing actually is in slightly better condition than the non-affordable restricted housing, just because of the ownership of who owns it and so forth for reasons. But there's been no correlation between a value of adjacent property going down because of affordable housing.
Thanks for that, Jeremy. Well, obviously, a couple of things that have come up in the comments is the hospital, and that has certainly been a topic of discussion, potentially putting a hospital on the 42nd Avenue parking lot. I think it would just come down to if there's enough room for a hospital and what it looks like. But I agree, we certainly need a hospital in West Seattle. The summer was very hot. This is Patricia, and we still have rain too. She would love to see more outdoor spaces with built-in covered options. Jason, I think we could probably make that magic happen, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. We would want to encourage that, and we understand the weather.
All right. Yeah, definitely need for a hospital. All right. Any other questions or comments? What else would you like to see? We've talked about a community space, the incubator, affordable housing, affordable senior housing, green space, places for people to sit outside and enjoy your lunch. What else would you like to see? It's a lot of land in this beautiful little urban village in the Junction. And if we are able to move forward with this, we're going to make sure that we get it right. And it's going to be beautiful and sustainable. And you're going to be proud to come into the Junction and see what we are able to accomplish together. So couple more questions. This is from Patricia again, could the alleys be pedestrian streets? That's interesting. I don't know the answer to that, Jeremy or Jason. Have you ever seen alleys somehow turned into more pedestrian friendly areas?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that happen. I think a big challenge is you service a lot of the businesses that way. So that would be the thing to think about, and it would take some big vision, I think. But obviously, I think the alleys are pretty nice to walk right now, so they're not too busy. So I think what we're proposing hopefully makes that even a little bit more friendly. I don't think people drive down them fast. It's really easy to walk. So it's a nice thought to think about them more pedestrian like.
Yeah, and I think Keila, did you work on that project?
Yeah, here at Community Roots Housing, we have the Eco District, which is a community initiative for Department for the Community Initiative. And one of our projects was our alley project, which we have a report on how we looked at Pike Pine and looked at the alley to see how we could make it more safe, vibrant, and more community public friendly. And we got a lot of good results and recommendations. So yeah, it is capable. We have supported that within our organization as well, and have pilot projects with families coming out, bowling, community events. And we also are developing there too, and which we will use that alley for more community friendly. So lighting.
We have a project called Pride Place, which is starting construction. Well, it's already started construction a week or two ago. And it's an LGBTQ senior project, affordable project, first one in the city of Seattle. And we've actually oriented it a bit towards an alley in the Pike Pine corridor as a way to try to improve that alley or engage in that alley and make it more pedestrian friendly. We'll see how it goes, but Akila's been involved in that too. So we're excited about the challenges. So I think if that's something the neighborhood wants to see here, we certainly are more than excited about trying to help improve the alleys for pedestrian use.
All right, just a couple more questions. And don't forget, we will be putting this link on the Junction website on YouTube, and then your local media as well will be, I'm sure we'll be sharing today's meeting. And then I owe everybody the intercept study from SDOT, and I will make sure that everybody has a copy of that PDF. Bruce, you included, from Junction True Value. I'm going to prove my 29% to you. Let's see here, space for two-wheel parking. I agree. I think more spaces for two-wheel parkers is great. And then there's a nice, yeah, there is a nice florist shop across from Safeway. Greenery in small parks. I knew that was going to be a top thing for everybody, is more green space. My wish for the project is celebrates beauty. And that's going to be fun as well. I mean, keep in mind that the Junction, we also hold all of our historic murals as well that we've been slowly renovating thanks to the community support. And that will be something that will be definitely brought into this design, are more murals as well, and a lot of diverse murals as well. So don't worry about the beauty. I think we can get that. Let's see here. Rich is right from Councilmember Herbold. She checked the record. The MHA amendments for the Junction were nearby, but not here. Thank you, Councilmember Herbold, again for joining us this evening. I really appreciate that. And then the parking lots could be used for outdoor spaces for art, fairs, and night markets during holidays and hot summer days. Absolutely. I think we need more community building in the Junction. I mean, it's so much fun to put together the sidewalk sales and Summerfest and the street fair and Harvest Fest, but I think the more opportunity we have to join together as a connected community in common space, I think the better we are as a community as a whole. And then Tina, we agree, affordable housing is a huge need in our community. Really appreciate the proposal's focus on affordable housing. Yeah, absolutely. It is key. Housing is just going to be more and more expensive as Seattle grows. So anyway, any other questions or comments before we close the meeting today? Jeremy and Jason, thank you so much for all of the energy and the input, and we appreciate everything that you've done. We are really hoping that we can create a Junction that is visionary and sustainable and has all of those beautiful pieces that you've asked for this evening. And also it creates a legacy as well for trustee properties. So anyway, without that, I will say, I think we're done with the meeting tonight. We're gonna wrap up. Jason, Jeremy, any last words from you?
Hey, just thank you for the opportunity to present these, and love hearing all the feedback.
And I think the same. Chris, our CEO, might be able to close it out with any. Chris, do you have anything to say?
Thanks, Jeremy. The first thing I would say is great job, Jeremy and team. And it was great to hear all of the input from the community. This is the first time we're going to be hearing community input, and welcome a lot more. I did see a comment about how can people give input who couldn't make it to the meeting, and we'll work on creating a portal for people to give suggestions as we move forward. You know, if you take a look at our website and learn a little bit about Community Roots Housing, we are Community Roots. The work that we do really prioritizes what you want for the community, and we hear you loud and clear. We'll work closely with you we'll work closely with Laura and of course with Councilmember Herbold's office to make sure that this is, as Laura was saying, a place that you would be proud coming to in the future. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Really appreciate those closing words. And Councilmember Herbold, would you like to say anything before we close the meeting out this evening? Oh, I think she may have dropped off the call. Well, that is great. I'm really excited that she was able to join us. And Jason, if you want to make me the host again, I'll be able to close out the meeting for everyone. Thank you so much for spending an hour and a half with us this evening. Really appreciate all of your time, all of your comments, all of the good energy, and we'll be in touch. In the meantime, look for the recording and also a few PDFs as well, so you can read and rewatch this meeting to your heart's desire. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Good evening.
Laura, can you remind me how to give you that control? I don't remember.
If you click the three dots upper right hand pane, you should be able to make me the host again. If not, we can just close out.
So I think I'm gonna leave and you're gonna get it, so. Oh, here, I can do it now.
Go ahead and just close the meeting out. Oh, you got it. Okay, I've closed it out. Thanks, everyone.